And on Fridays, we like to look at the week in politics, what's happening both uh, in America and elsewhere, how it affects the political aspirations of many, both for the presidency and beyond. And a guy who has forgotten more about politics than most of us will ever know joins us every Friday. He is the great Michael Shure, everyone. Hi, Michael.
Hi, guys. Did you
Michael,
pretend that I wasn't just here now, or is this
well,
fluid?
we dropped the video separately, Michael.
Okay.
So
Should we try
please,
that again? Should we intro
please
me
don't make
again?
me introduce you. This is this.
I just like hearing the compliments. Okay, go ahead.
The people go, we'll just cut. Albert, can you cut this part out where Michael asks, are you going to say that I was here before? Or can you cut that
I
out,
mean, it
Albert?
can, but it could also send people back to our Florida video where you can find Michael, who will end the segment with us. So
That's
make sure you
true.
watch
Michael
that segment,
Michael was waiting in the green room. We had him join us for a part of Florida. So if you'd like to hear a little bit of Michael Shure, he is available on that video too. So we'll just continue here. Now to politics, which is really your stated goal on the show. We really are grateful for you being here, and I will start with Trump only because he is dominating the news, his trial in Manhattan. But I like to come at this because it's you from a political standpoint. I mean, it seems as though a lot of the stuff we're finding out. I mean, while it may have some reputational stink on it, Michael, like paying hush money to porn stars and paying hush money to Playboy models, etc. It's as I've noted here before, it's lucky the stuff is just not televised, so you don't really, you're reading it if you want, and a lot of the reactions I think are baked into the public. His base certainly doesn't care about this. Give me your sense of does it move the meter at all at the end of all of this?
It only will move the meter if there are voters who would otherwise be trending toward Donald Trump, who sour on him because of what they're hearing or because of what the verdict would be here, and if it would be a negative result for the former president. What I mean is that, and that's not the hard support Trump has. That's the soft support. Those are people who maybe voted for Biden but don't like him anymore and had a hard time doing it in the first place. They don't want to do it again. And I don't think that's a big number of people, by the way. If I'm proven wrong, I'm proven wrong. But I think that's it's a big country, and a lot of people vote, a lot more don't, but millions do. And I think when you see some of those people who would have otherwise been interested perhaps in coming either back to Donald Trump or just didn't like Joe Biden after 4 years, those are the voters that would be hurt. If this really comes out in a verdict that's not good for Trump, it slows momentum. It keeps him off the trail. I think that he's not able to create a narrative about it on a daily basis because the spin machine can't, because the clips aren't there. And these are people who subsist on clips. The social media, the truth social, the right-wing media, it's all about clips. It's all about sharing them and watching what Trump says in reaction to something that may have happened. So I think it hurts in those kind of ways. It doesn't hurt in the ways that many Democrats wish it would hurt, but hurt is still hurt.
Yeah, it's interesting because the connection, the link that they have to draw legally, I was saying in the first hour, is to the political cover-up that's going on, right? That's what makes this sort of run afoul of election laws. And you now have Hope Hicks testifying today, and she is testifying. She's a friendly witness to Trump. I mean, she's very loyal still to Donald Trump. And so she's there reluctantly, but she said that the Wall Street Journal was going to run with that story on McDougal, and they actually called for comment, and that sent them into this kind of a tailspin about the harm it would do, the political harm it might do to the president to Trump, I should say, who was trying to become president. So I mention this because, that's the kind of framework that has to be put in place from a legal standpoint for the charges to stick.
Yeah. And, I think yesterday they heard taped testimony. They heard Donald Trump on the phone in a weird conversation, but they heard Michael Cohen and Donald Trump talking. It wasn't on the phone, it was recorded. And to that extent, I think that, that's a little smoking gunish. If you're a juror, it's hard to overlook that conversation. It was about something that had nothing to do with Stormy Daniels, we should point out. And this is a case ostensibly about Stormy Daniels, but it speaks to what the operation of, Trump 2016 was doing.
And then, of course, jurors will be reminded, hey, but remember, there's nothing illegal about paying off anybody to stay quiet, And the directives, I think, to the jurors will be about that law to which I've been referring, which is the election law, and running afoul of those election laws. I know you hate these polls,
Yeah.
this early, so for that reason and more, I can't resist.
Throw one up, Mark. Let's
there is a poll, two recent polls suggesting Trump is now lagging marginally. One poll of just over 1,000 adults by Florida Atlantic University and Main Street Research. 40% of all voters said they would vote for Biden. 40%. 38% would choose Trump in a race in which independent candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was included. Only when only likely voters were polled, 44% said they would vote for Biden, 39% for Trump. Again, 44 for Biden, 39 for Trump. The poll also found out that in a two-person race, where likely voters were polled, 47 vote for Biden, 46 vote for Trump. I mean, that essentially is a dead heat.
Yeah.
And so they go through these different scenarios. There is a second poll, and then I'll let you comment and tell me that this is all just meaningless. A Reuters Ipsos poll, 856 registered voters. This just was taken this week. Found that 40% of registered voters would vote for Biden, compared with 39% who would vote for Trump. The 1% lead is down from a 4-point lead that Biden did have in this poll conducted by Reuters earlier, a few weeks ago, actually. And they have a 3 percentage point margin of error. The question I have for you then is, do you think Biden, please comment on the poll if you want. I kind of suspect that you're going to tell me not to worry too much about it. But do you think Biden is taking on some political water as a result of world events and where he stands, trying to sort of balance these various positions that he's held for a long time? I'm talking about Gaza. I'm talking about protesters. There's just a lot going on right now, and I'm wondering if it's reflected at all in some of this polling.
Yeah, I don't know. The protest probably not reflected there. Gaza probably baked into these polls, but what isn't baked into polls, which is why is what if gas prices shoot up over the summer? What if what if war does in fact break out in different ways and Hezbollah goes into Israel, and Biden is made to make a decision on Israel? What if Trump is indicted? What if or is convicted? What if he names a running mate who is toxic? There's so many ifs here that a poll right now gives you a sense. What do I learn from that poll? That that Bobby Kennedy probably hurts Donald Trump a little more than he hurts Joe Biden, and that's probably not his goal, or may in fact be. We don't really know where he stands on either of those men, but I think that if you look at Biden taking on water, to go back to your question, is he taking on water, or is he actually shoring up his natural constituencies, like union members, by talking about unions, by environmentalists, because of what he did in Alaska? Is he going to shore it up because he is starting to put people who are from the INS and from Homeland Security, or bring them to Homeland Security, people who are part of Customs and Immigration, to change their tone down on the border? I mean, so he's also getting rid of a lot of water at the same time and shoring. What Biden has to do, Mark and Kim, is he has to get Democrats out to vote. And what his only job is right now is to haul in as many Democrats as he can. Is that hurting with young college students right now who are up in arms over, literally over arms of what the United States is doing with Israel? Perhaps, but that's not a reliable constituency, because they don't vote in the numbers that union members vote. They don't vote in the numbers that African Americans of older age vote, and those are the constituents that have to come out for Biden in order for him to win re-election.
The question about young people, you just referred to them. Can you tell me historically, I mean, in recent history, they certainly turned out in the Quad, to set up tents and to create a kind of unrest, and they've closed down universities. Sorry?
In 2020,
how do they vote? Do they vote? Do they show up? Was the question.
Yeah, in 2020, it went up by, I think, about 10% from 2016 among young voters. So that would be about, I don't know what it was, but nearly half of young people voted in 2020, which was a huge increase from what it was. But I don't think that you rely on those voters because just because young voters are voting. It could be a big swath of religious voters. It could be activist college students. It could be young voters who are important to Joe Biden winning, but they're not as important as you want them all the time. You want every voter, and you want every voter who would be a natural constituent, but you have to get those blocks that get their people out. And young people try and get young people out, but they're much more easily distracted. Unions get union members out. Churches, black churches, bus people to the polls. You have environmentalists that have, through the Sierra Club, an entire network. You have the gay, lesbian, the LGBTQ that has the Human Rights Campaign, and they have an infrastructure of getting people out to vote. These are the very important typically Democratic constituencies, and there are more of them, of course. And so young voters are a much more nebulous crowd and harder to pin down, and less likely to organize. I mean, there are college Republicans and there are young Democrats, but it's a little different.
Now to the running mate. Kristi Noem, who was said to have been in the hunt to be Donald Trump's running mate.
The different expression.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for most people are aware of this, but she wrote a book and was essentially in the book peacocking about how she doesn't blanch from having to do things that are difficult and she handles things aggressively, problem situations aggressively. And one of the problems she had was that her dog that they had adopted wasn't respectful enough, wasn't tame enough, wasn't trained enough to avoid eating and attacking the neighbor's chickens. I guess that was the issue that put her over the edge as far as the dog was concerned. And rather than taking the dog to a rescue or some of the things that we might view as, rehoming the animal in some way, she dragged him to a gravel pit and shot him. And then she also talks about this in the book. She, I think, shot a goat, too, that she said had sort of been an ornery goat. I mean, again, probably, it was a bad look, okay? I wonder if you could, she has been pilloried this week for this.
She will not be. I would have put her in the top 2 to 3 of who would be his running mate. She is off the list. She will not be the running mate. There's the people that will come to her defense, and the people that say, yeah, Kristi, kick ass, say it how it is. Those are the people that are already voting for Donald Trump. Donald Trump needs to get, suburban women, the ones that have dogs and pets, out to vote for him. This will not be what he is looking for, and so she's eliminated now from the vice presidency.
It's interesting that the other people who might be circling and then may move up in the rotation as a result of this, Michael Shure, can you handicap them for us?
No, because I think it is, it's a fun thing to talk about. I'll talk about it all the time, but I think it's unclear Because if you have great political ambition, um, it didn't work for Mike Pence, right? Mike Pence did something that infuriated a lot of the MAGA crowd. But if you're pure MAGA and you want to sort of advance your career by being the running mate, it crushes you if he loses. And if he wins, he's only as loyal as you are, and he would probably get a loyalist. But if it turns out, as it does with many second-term presidents, that it becomes healthy to distance yourself from the incumbent, from the sitting president who would be term limited. So if you start distancing yourself, for example, when Al Gore started distancing himself a little from Bill Clinton, when let's see, there's another, George H.W. Bush, distancing himself from Reagan a little bit, trying to carve out their own paths. The presidents never commented on it. Donald Trump will not let that happen without talking about it and commenting on it and disrespecting that person. So it's a big risk if you have political ambition. If you don't have political ambition, you might not be as you might be concerned about your legacy and being his running mate. It doesn't mean there are going to be a lot of people who want to run with Donald Trump. But I'm saying of the big players that you would imagine, you have to look at each case individually. Kristi Noem is somebody who, before all this happened, I would have said, sees the advantages because she's in South Dakota and also sees the possibility of moving on to the presidency and being a candidate nationally if she stays loyal to the president. And Donald Trump is less likely to bash, I would imagine, a woman who is on his team. So, not that he has high respect for women, we know that, but I think that there's a different dynamic. There's not a tough guy dynamic that's as admired, I should say. So I haven't answered with names, but a lot of the names that are out there right now are not, I guess if you look in Virginia, you look at Glenn Youngkin, he would be somebody who I could see joining up with Trump. Constituency wise, they're kind of a match, and I don't think Youngkin's going to carry anybody across the finish line with him, but it might be an opportunity for him because once he is there, will stand up to Donald Trump in the last year of that presidency.
It's interesting, though, that you talk about this because then I start thinking about the like J.D. Vances of the world, who even the true Trump loyalists, like Marjorie Taylor Greene. These are people who are such flamethrowers, just the way Trump is, that they almost establish their brand more than they establish loyalty to Trump. I get it's a short trip from where they are to loyalty to Trump,
right.
But I guess I see him as scene stealers a little bit. When I think about Trump, he doesn't want somebody who's a scene stealer, does he?
No, that's exactly right. He wants somebody in the mold of Mike Pence, but who isn't Mike Pence, right? that was what was great about Mike Pence is that he was just, he just stood there, right, until he didn't. I think that yes, I think you're right, 100%. I don't think he wants a scene stealer. He wants somebody who will look good next to him. I think he liked the way Mike Pence looked because he's very he's very conscious about aesthetics. I'm sure likes the way Kristi Noem looks. So I think some of these other people might be an acquired taste for him, and I say that in the most base of ways because that's how he looks at this stuff.
K Wayne 68 is saying, I'm curious if Michael has an idea of how many swing voters will sit this election out because they don't like either Biden or Trump.
Yeah, it's really hard to predict that. I think that it wouldn't be. I think that the number will be more significant than in the past. I think it's a very good question. I think it's actually the best question because it will determine who wins this election in a way. Because I don't know that it's swing voters as much as it is actual voters, actual Republicans who are not swing voters, who are Republicans who just don't want to vote for Donald Trump, and actual Democrats who just aren't, inspired by Joe Biden and enough to get out and vote. So those aren't, while they're not swing voters, they're really important, and they become swing voters by default because of the fact that they could swing the election.
In our last couple of minutes, Michael Shure, could you explain to me again the politics of Florida? They've just put in this abortion ban that is really brutal. It's a 6-week abortion ban, and it sort of reminds us of the political constituencies, I'm talking about from a legislative standpoint, that exist in Florida, and then
Yes.
the political constituencies that exist in the populace of Florida. Can you just quickly do that, and then I'll let you go? Thank you.
Well, in terms of, there's this protecting freedom, the amendment that's on the ballot too, which is really important, because abortion is going to get voters out. There's no question. We've already
And the protecting
seen
freedom, just to be clear, is about women's reproductive freedoms in this case.
Exactly.
On the ballot in Florida.
It's an amendment that would keep government basically out. And if it's on the ballot, which it will be, if it's a ballot initiative, it's going to bring out a lot of pro-choice voters in Florida, which there is crossover, but there's not much crossover. It's good for Democrats when that's on the ballot. Look, I think a lot of legislators who are Republican are representing people who are pro-life. It might not be the only thing they vote on, especially for men, or especially in a state like Florida. I don't know. I haven't sort of read down into that, but as an issue, it has proven to be good as a fundraiser and as a catalyst for getting support for Republicans in their districts. But whether it be a legislative district in Florida, and a state rep district or a state Senate district, or nationally for a congressional district. But what happens is when you go statewide or nationwide, the right to choose is more popular than a ban on abortion. So it is very risky. It's consistent but risky. And they know it's risky because they see themselves losing. But there's no leader to follow who is kind of sitting on the fence on this. The Republicans are still pro-choice pro-life, and because that is the position that has gotten them, most of them, to where they are. And it's very tough to get off of that, but it may just crush them too, as it has in certain elections.
Michael, I so appreciate your time.
Good to be here.
We
glad you're
try
back
to
in your
we do what we can for you. Once every 3 years, I buy you a lunch, which is really,
Right.
but it's a really good lunch.
Well, it was so long ago that I don't remember how good it was. I missed the last one.
You did,
yeah,
but I
was out.
will.
You schedule the lunches when I'm on the road, which is another.
You do miss a lot of stuff because you're on the road a lot, but we appreciate you joining us from wherever you are every week. And find Michael Shure and his work across the world on the accessible through the World Wide Web. And we love you coming here. Michael, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Albert, do you have anything for Michael on hockey before I let him go?
Oh, yeah, let's go, Albert. Let's talk about that.
Kamish, give him the Sharks are not in it.
Oh no! We're just trying to get the #1 overall pick, which we're statistically have the best odds.
But the Stanley Cup playoffs, it's on.
Yeah,
right?
Michael Shure's Rangers got an easy go with the. I don't know how the Capitals made it to the playoffs, but they.
Yeah, I mean, I have to think that if the Penguins had beaten or the Red Wings had beaten out the Capitals, the Rangers would have had a tougher time with them. And I think that that next series should be an interesting series. But there's a Game 7 tomorrow night with Toronto and Boston. Boston was up 3-1. I'm in this thread with people who text about the NBA, and I haven't seen a minute of NBA playoff action. I can't believe people actually watch it. But
because they don't play with skates, you don't really like to. Is that the problem?
It's an inferior sport, and nothing that happens in the first half matters. And so that's.
Well, he's not wrong about that. About the first half.
An early run matters in a baseball game. An early touchdown matters. An early goal matters. You're up by 10 at the half. All right, let's play a different game next time. It's the worst. It's the absolute worst. But the NHL playoffs are the best thing in all of sports. So
Albert, you will cut this part out though of the segment, right?
Maybe or maybe not. It's if you can make it to this part of the segment, then you probably deserve a little extra.
Yeah, I agree. This is the most important part of what I've had to say.
Michael Shure, everybody. Thanks, Michael.
Let's go, Rangers.
I'm loving it. Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.